DRC has very significant reserves of renewable energy, whether it's hydro, for instance, the Inga Dam can produce up to 42 gigabytes of energy in one project. DRC controls 38% of all strategic green minerals. So it combines the mineral, the hydro capability, the solar, the wind, and at the same time has these lungs of the world. That has really put a spotlight on DRC, that the challenges of the DRC are the challenges of the world. Africa is a huge investment opportunity, and the way to unlock Africa is threefold. The first one is to position Africa for what it is, that Africa has labor, and going forward will dominate the world up to 42% of world labor by 2050. Africa will be home to 26% of the world population. That is market. We should say a concentrated market. And these two are being interlinked with the African continental free trade area. It's no longer thinking 54 countries, it's thinking a single market. And we have seen that regional blocs have perfected that. So it's now integration between the blocs, not between the countries. And that then can fast track that process. And the last one is the opportunity, the investment opportunity in terms of energy. Africa has 62% of all unutilized and developed renewable energy. And that will be then the basis of not only energy transition, but African industrialization without legacy power problems. And the last one is 65% of arable and utilized land is in Africa. So it is not just the population, but the opportunity of land to feed that population, of food security. So when you look, then you have raw materials, you have labor, you have market. The only thing missing is risk appetite and capital. And Africa has now generated significant capital. If you look at Equity Bank, we're now a $14 billion balance sheet with a $2 billion capital base. So capital is now being mobilized in the continent. And I'm very excited that the top 52 entrepreneurs in the continent, led by Dagote, have come together, formed a forum and an organization called the African Renaissance Group to lead the charge of investing and demonstrating and crowding in global capital without inviting them to come on their own, but to invest jointly in projects where we bring local knowledge, we bring local currency, and foreigners bring maybe the long-term component of capital. So the opportunity is opening. Lastly, is that if you look, Africa has been the second fastest growing continent in the world. But if you look at Eastern Central Africa, it has become the fastest growing region in the world, producing 5 of the 10 fastest growing economy. So it is not just the opportunity, but the opportunity is being supported by the market because Africa has unique resources that the world require, like strategic green minerals. It has a higher concentration. It has cleaner energy than any other continent in the world. So transition will not happen. So that positions Africa much better. And lastly, is the world is resetting. And for the first time, the framework that was formed in 1947 after the Second World War is being reviewed when Africa is on the table. So Africa can position itself and position the capability that it can bring on the table. DRC has very significant reserves of renewable energy, whether it's hydro, For instance, the Inga Dam can produce up to 42 gigabytes of energy in one project. And the World Bank recently released 1 billion to start visibility for the first 11 gigawatts of energy. Then DRC is also endowed with the Congo Basin forests. That truly DRC is the first lungs of the world. And essentially we then can see the role and the leadership position that DRC can play. And in addition to that, DRC controls 38% of all strategic green minerals. So it combines the mineral wealth, the hydro capability, the solar, the wind, and at the same time has these lungs of the world. That has really put a spotlight on DRC. That the challenges of the DRC are the challenges of the world. And we have seen whether it's the US or Qatar jumping in to help DRC resolve its long outstanding conflicts and peace initiatives. That then creates a stable, enabling environment for global players, whether it's the American companies, whether it's a Middle East company, whether it's African companies, to open up DRC and transform it within a very short time. The experience that we have had in DRC over 10 years when we acquired ProCredit, a German bank, was that in 2015, we had a balance sheet of only $150 million. 10 years later, we have a balance sheet in excess of $5.2 billion US. And that is what people don't see. They see DRC and see conflict. But our experience is massive opportunity that provides growth than we had ever experienced in our 40 years of existence. DRC, out of the 7 countries we have invested in, now constitute that 3% of our entire balance sheet. And that is what we tell. We have constantly taken trade missions to DRC, the latest one being 2 weeks ago, where 70 international investors. And that, I think, was the 36th roadshow in 5 years. So, and it's to bring awareness of the opportunity. DRC can't be beaten in agriculture, 82 million hectares of arable land. You can't beat agriculture in water. You can't give it in mineral resource. And DRC has a population in excess of 110 million people. So it's a sizable consumer market, but very concentrated population, with Kinshasa having more than 20 million people, and Lubumbashi more than 7 million people, Bukavu and Goma combined 6 million people. So it is urbanized population making it easy for investments. We as Equity Group are very lucky to be in 7 countries, 5 of them ranked in the top 10 fastest growing economies: Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, DRC, Ethiopia. And also to recognize Kenya and South Sudan are not far. They're in the top 20 fastest growing economies. We don't see these as standalone growth. We see this as a regional bloc. The investment that these countries have made in infrastructure, whether it's the 5 gigabytes of energy in Ethiopia, it's a regional energy pool. And Kenya is the biggest importer of that and user of that energy. When you look at the 11 gigabytes that DRC had just commenced with the World Bank, it's an energy pool for the region. If you look at the investment of infrastructure, whether it's standard gauge railways in Kenya, it is all linked to go to Kisangani through Rwanda and Uganda. If you look what Tanzania has miraculously done in terms of infrastructure, is linking that entire region to be a single market. And there has been significant discipline as a common market in the region. So it's common market, interlinked with infrastructure and easy policies for trade across the trade. But the most interesting is that each country is focusing on what it's best at. DRC has focused on natural resources. Ethiopia has focused significantly on energy. Kenya has focused on services because it has and Tanzania has focused on minerals and agriculture, and we see Uganda is becoming a health hub. So each of them is finding its niche, and then taking the entire 350 million population as a single market.